Okay, so you have now completed rendering something on the render farm. Where is it, and what do we do with it? So, and again, the render farm is up there. So if you need to queue stuff up to the render farm, it's ready to go. So I'm just going to grab someone's random stuff to make sure that we're on top of this. Here's a couple things I wanted to note. The SSD drive on many of your computers are full, and what that means is you have two storage spaces. Again, we've talked about this before, but you have an SSD drive, which, as many of you know, has that's the instant. It's a RAM chip basically that's running as a hard drive, and so it's constantly reading, writing stuff. But that's what we're supposed to hold on to for applications and stuff, and system. Now you also have a hard drive on the computer, which is double the amount of the SSD drive. So from this point on, I want you to be very painfully aware, and I'm going to make it really painful for you guys by smacking you in the back of the head to make it physically painful. No. But you have, if you go to this PC, you've got the Windows drive, which is the SSD drive. And you'll notice here that it only has 232 gigabytes, which most of you are almost full with that. Now, we did clear out a few of them. Like I think the one Natalie's on was absolutely full, so they couldn't even install Maya, so we had to clear it out so we can do that. So, but there's another one here. Okay, so system, that's a few megabytes. HP Tools, those two they may or may not be on yours. But the one right here, storage is what is for you. Save your files there. Go ahead and fill it up. We will erase them after the semester's over, but that's where you need to be saving everything. So those of you who keep doing this, desktop save everything, that desktop is filling up the SSD drive, because that desktop as a user everything that's in here, downloads, documents, pictures, that's going to the SSD drive, okay? So please stop saving stuff there because it's causing problems, and stop downloading 2 gigabyte games on these computers if that pertains to you, because we had one that was a 17 gigabyte video game on the computer that Karen is on. I don't remember off the top of my head. He was running Oculus Rift, so it was something that was involved in that. But which would have been fine had he just put it on a different drive. Otherwise, it was full. So instead of clicking on your quick access, go ahead and close that so you stop doing that. Go to storage. There should be plenty of space there for you. So I'm going to just make a new folder for the example today. And so make yourself a folder, and that's where you're going to save it. So you make sure it's this PC storage E. Stop saving stuff on the SSD drive. They're full. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the Arch drive, and I'm going to pick someone at random to show off their work. But and everyone groans. Okay, so here you went into the we went into our afternoon class, and we have the render farm, and these are the people that send stuff to render. All right. So I'll go to Matt's stuff. Okay, who's proud of their work that wants to show it? Brian? What's your last name? I forget. Sanvito. Okay, so he has his wireframe pass. Great, wireframe pass, right? And then he has his color pass. If there are any mistakes, I'm taking no responsibility. I don't see a color version in here. Oh, it's in the HDRI folder? Okay. There we are. So here's the color version of the car. Great. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get these off here. So I'm just going to control drag and just drag them over to the footage. You guys can copy and paste if you want to. You PC users, you. But if you just drag them over, it'll just copy right over. And once that's done, we're going to use a program called After Effects. How dare we use a different program? I know. Oh. Yes, it is.
You're going to learn today.
All right.
Okay. And again, hopefully IT has installed everything exactly the way it should be. We'll find out here in a second. All right, so first I need to fire up After Effects. There's been I've heard random complaints. Many of you are using Windows 7, so in case you're confused about how this works, this is just most used. This isn't supposed to show you your files. I only say this because this was literally a question last week. This isn't supposed to show your files. It's just whatever you've been using recently. You can go to All Apps here, and of course, when you get to something, it's all, something that's way down there, it gets a little obnoxious here. So we can do After Effects from right here, but look, After Effects 2015 is the one that's on here. This could be a fun conversation. If I have to tell them one more time, I'm going to kill them. File Explorer. And again, if you don't know where your files are located on your computer, you need to learn how computers work. You giggle, it's true. Because this is, people complain, it's like, what's the difference between the Mac and the PC? Well, guess what? Nothing. This is exactly how it works on the Macintosh too. Except for ours says applications, yours said program files. Here's Adobe's folder, and they still have it installed. Do you guys have 2017 on your computers? Not that computer, I mean these computers. 2017s are all in these? These bozos. So close. Well, just check your folders, make sure stuff is there. 2017? Okay, so we're going to have a conversation. This will work exactly the same in both programs. The only difference is it looks a little bit darker and is missing tabs. So, yeah. So let's go into After Effects. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it into there. There's a couple little minor things. Many of you last semester learned this, but some of you have never used After Effects before. So I'm just going to share with you how to do this. All right, After Effects is not a video editing program. It is a special effects program. We actually teach After Effects on Fridays here at the campus. So if you're interested, please join me. You can do, we do lightsaber battles. We slice people in half. People create lightning coming from their hands. We also do motion graphics like titles and holograms and all that kind of stuff. So I'll pitch this at the end of the semester in case you want to join us. Yes, lots of Star Wars, lots of Star Trek, lots of explosions and bloods and stuff and splatters go everywhere. And anyway, so the difference between this one and the one that you guys may or may not have if you have 2017 is, see these tabs that are really defined here? For some reason, in the newer versions, they've kind of removed that. So when you click on them, they're not necessarily highlighted differently. I don't know why they have done that. Is it doing that on yours? Okay, maybe it's just Audition that's been doing it. Okay. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to bring your files into Adobe After Effects. Now, there's a kind of a funky thing that happens here. It can bring in a still image, or it can bring in what we call an image sequence. Now, you guys rendered out an image sequence. Now, so, again, looking at Brian's, his view, details, starts at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and blah, 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 right? All the way down to, I'm guessing, 150 frames. Yes, 150 frames. And so that's good that we know that it's going to have 150 frames there. If I'm importing it, so I go File, Import, or Control I, and I'll go to Storage Drive. Where did I save it? Test Footage, HDRI. I'll grab version 1. Now, before I do anything else, don't double click or anything like that. We need to be aware of a couple things. If you bring it in and there's just one file there, that means you had sequence options, PNG sequence turned off. Okay, so we have to tell it that it's a sequence. It's usually default. It usually recognizes it on its own behalf, but sometimes if you use a Targa file or a TIFF file, sometimes it just grabs one. You just have to be aware if that happens. That's what's going on is the fact that it's right here, PNG sequence, instead of just a single image. Because if I turn that off, it'll just bring in the one image. But we do want this as a sequence. Yay, so hit import. I only have to select the first one, and it'll recognize everything. So now if I double click, hey, look, there's the file. And it's a consistent, and you'll see that here that it loops. That it's only looping because it hit 150 frames and started over. We need to tell it a couple things when it comes in. First of all, did you want a background in here or did you want it black? It doesn't matter to me. Well, because the reason I say is because some people, and I'll let me see here. Okay, so what happens is if you turned on alpha channel, okay, so I need to look at something. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to go to interpret footage, and I hit main. Now, I mean, I know that Quinn had this question, I'm sure many of you do, why is my background gone, right? Well, you have an alpha channel. An alpha channel knocks out so it's over nothing. Here, let me hit cancel and I'll show you. So right now, look at that checkerboard. That just means it's transparent, just like Photoshop. All right, so let me right click, interpret footage, main. And I'm going to hit ignore and check it out. Now I see a background. If I turn on straight or pre-multiplied, it removes it because it's seen transparent. If I turn that off, now I can just see the background there. It doesn't matter to me if you have it or don't have it, as long as it looks cool, and we've learned this process. The second thing I want you to do is we want this to loop minimum of 3 times, so it just constantly moves in a circle. And you can't loop it in the program efficiently. So at the bottom of these settings is something that says loop. How many times do you want to loop? 3 times. Great, and hit OK. And again, many of you learned this last semester and all the issues that come along with it. So now what I can do is, even though this is a 0 to 150, it now says here it's 15 seconds worth instead of 5 seconds worth. So it automatically ballooned it from 5 seconds to 15 seconds. Now, to make it into a sequence, I'm going to just drag it from here, and there's a little button that looks like a film reel here. I'm just going to drag it to that, and when I do that, it will actually make the document the exact same size as what was rendered and the timeline of all 15 seconds. And there it is. And now if I hit the space bar, it'll play, and you'll see when it hits 5 seconds, we'll see if it loops. Now, he did one thing that was really good. He removed 1 frame off it. You rendered 1 to 150 instead of 0 to 150. And what happens is, if you have the number 0 and you go around 360 degrees to 360, those are the same number in a looping segment, right? So you either render, so that's 150 frames. So 360 degrees, 150 frames. If you render from 1 to 150 like he did, or you render from 0 to 149, you won't have the same looped frame here. And you notice that that doesn't have that little tick. If you have a little tiny pause in the middle of that, all you need to do is restart, delete the first or last frame, re-import the whole thing, and it'll loop seamlessly, okay, if you've done it correctly. And again, I'll come around, and this is not a test. I'll come around and make sure you guys are aware of the process here. So here we are. We've got our file here, and we're ready to put the wireframe in. So we need to import the wireframe the same way. And I'm just going to Control I. And I'll go out of that footage. I'll go into the wireframe. Again, select the first one, import. And if I want to look at it, I can double click. It's not in the scene. It's just showing me, and again, the background stuff. Now this one, I do not want the alpha channel turned off, because then it's going to bring in footage. If I'll show you here what it looks like if I do that. See, I don't want that, all right? I want that to be transparent, which is why I had you guys turn it off, so just in case. So we want to be on straight there and hit OK. Wait, so you want it on for this? I want it on for the wireframe because I don't want to see the background information, because this is supposed to be wireframe, as many of you remember from last year how we were going to apply it. The other thing I need to do is I need to right-click, go to Interpret Footage, Main, and leave the alpha channel on, but I need to loop it 3 times again. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer it on top of each other by dragging it from the window here into the window here. And you can see it's layered. So that's on top, that's beneath it. So I can swap them back and forth, just like stacking papers or layers in Photoshop or Illustrator or any other program. So you guys should be able to understand that. Now, the wireframe I want to be able to see through to the color of the car, and we're going to use one of our multiply channels here, a mode here. This is called the blending mode. And those of you, you're all supposed to have taken Photoshop before you came into this class, so you should be aware of what a blending mode is, which is being able to do darken, add, whatever. We're going to use multiply. And when I do that, you can see that the car now looks like it has a wireframe mesh on it. And that's just because I've just got the I now just have the color of the wireframe, and it's removing all of the white. Yes? Okay, so and that's fine. Down at the very bottom here, there's this thing that says toggle switches and modes. All right, if you click that, they should pop up. Okay? That just toggles it on and off. So if I switch it, you can see that it's swapping out that information there. You can actually bring that out if you right-click. I'm not going to go, this isn't how to use After Effects, but there's all that information there too, in case you're interested. Just right-click on the header, and you can say, hey, I want to hide this, or I want to bring something else out. So I'll hide that. All right. So now I've got the wireframe on the car, but I want to start off without the wireframe, or without the color. I want to start from wireframe so you can see your modeling, wireframe in car, and then car by itself. So preferred, and again, last semester you guys have done this before, so wireframe, that's the first pass. 2 is wireframe and color, and the third is color alone. All right, and then we want to be able to loop from here back to here seamlessly. So let me walk you through that. Many of you, again, remember how to do that, but many of you aren't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the back level, and I'm going to turn down my little transform tools. There's these little arrows on the side here, and that allows you to see all of your properties. And this is how you set keyframes. You guys understand keyframes now because you've done this before. So I have an opacity keyframe, which allows me to dissolve something on and off. So I'm going to go down to around 5 seconds, which is where the loop occurs. I'm going to Control-Shift-Click, which will let me go back 10 frames. And I'm going to turn on opacity and make it 0. Whoop. Okay? So right now, it's at 0. And that background's just transparent. Now, if I want to turn it on, I'm going to Control-Shift, jump ahead 20 frames. And now I will dissolve it on by making it 100%. And so by changing the opacity from 0 to 100%, you've got it dissolving on. Whee! All right. So now magic has occurred. We're going to go down to 10 seconds. And again, I'll Control-Shift, drop back. And I will then, the color is going to stay on all this time. Now I want to turn off the wireframe. So I need to select the wireframe. And I'm going to click on the opacity here, which is going to stay at 100% because we want on until that point. I'll go 20 frames and make it 0. All right, so now we've got it magically starting from a wireframe pass where you can look at your modeling. And again, the whole purpose of a wireframe, a whole purpose for a turntable is to look at how awesome your stuff is for approval. Okay, now it's dissolved away. The only thing that we need to do now is bring the wireframe back on at the very end and remove the color because we want it to loop. If I get to the end, you'll see that it all of a sudden pops, right? We don't really want that. So make it more graceful on the viewer. You're going to go to the very end. I will then go back 20 frames. To set a keyframe here, do not click that stopwatch again, because if I click that stopwatch, it'll remove every keyframe. The stopwatch just tells you, I want this keyframeable. If I want to say keyframe, I click on the diamond here. And I want to click on the diamond for the HDR color too. All right, so now it's set saying, okay, this is where I want that setting here. And then I go to the very end frame. I'll make this 0 for the color to go away. I'll make the wireframe 100% again, so the wireframe to come back on. And voila. We are done utilizing After Effects to turn it into a turntable. The final step is rendering it out to a QuickTime movie. Now, speaking of file sizes, my favorite one, and I won't point out who it is, but two of you know who, Caleb's not in here, but you guys know who this is. If you render this out, we're going to render it out to a QuickTime movie. And some of you who have never been in my class before may have not done this before. I'm going to write this up here because we're going to do this as a do not erase. Okay, so we're going to use it as a QuickTime movie. right? And we're going to render it out as an H.264 at 80%. All right? And I'll show you the difference here. So now it loops seamlessly when we flip around to the bend. Yay, we've got it looking good. So we're good to go. That's all we needed to drop in here. Last semester you guys had ambient occlusion passes, which if you rendered out would actually have a drop shadow underneath here, which would look nice. And again, ambient occlusion was a whole, turn on the whole ambient occlusion thing. And the only reason you would do that here is to accentuate the shadows underneath the car. But you can see here, well, you can't see here because he's got 100% reflection. But you would see the shadows under the car and would give it some weight to it. So that would be a preferred way of doing it, but I'm not asking for that right now because you guys did it last semester with the Legos turntable. Okay, the last thing I need is just turn this into a QuickTime movie for turn in. So if I go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, I now have some settings here which I'm going to walk through. Now, all of these rendering the ambient occlusion pass, turntable ambient occlusion rendering, all that information on how to do that is on the wall here. But it also shows you, actually this is backwards. Now here it shows you how to put it together in After Effects and all the settings and stuff like that. So if you're interested, and I'm not here, Marcus isn't here, this information is on the board at all times, and it will also be posted into our onto our D2L and into our folder. Okay, so render settings, leave it at best settings. You don't even have to click the top one at all. The second one's the problematic one. Right now it says lossless. All right? Now you'll notice here I have some choices. The choice that you want is not on here because you haven't used this computer before most of the time. So I'm going to click on that blue text. The blue text means that it's clickable. When I do that, it brings up another menu. Now, the first choice is an AVI. AVI is not a professional format to turn anything to any client in ever, 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 ever. Please don't do that. All right? What we're going to do is QuickTime here. And if you are on your home computer and you, even if you see a QuickTime option, you may not have it installed. You have to install QuickTime on your computer. So I'm going to click on QuickTime. And you'll see here we have some choices here. Now, what it will say here under format options, yours, if you haven't done this before, will say animation, which sounds about right, 100%. Unfortunately, and I will show you how large that file is, unfortunately, that's really large. So this is very, very evil, right? So you've got animation 100%. So what we need to do is we need to change it to the H.264. So I go down here where it says H.264 like I requested. And the quality, you can just click on the text and type in 80%. All right? There's no sound or anything, so I don't need to worry about anything else. And you can see your file size. That's the only thing I'm asking you to do is switch this to QuickTime and change your format options. Hit OK. Oh, sorry. Hit OK. And all we need to do now is tell it where to go. Output to. So I will find the same folder I rendered to earlier so that it's not rendering. Do not render over the network to the Arch drive. As you can imagine, it's plowing through and trying to read back and forth as it's writing the data. That's just bad mojo. Please don't do that. I'll give it whatever name I want. Car turntable. Hit save. Don't worry about what that says. I mean, it says QuickTime, but you don't have to do anything there. Just hit save. And hit the render button down here. It'll whip right through it. Don't worry if it's not showing because they turned off the preview. That's a happy sound. Bling! That means it's done. So now I can actually pull up the file where I saved it, and it's viewable on any tablet, PC, Mac, any device. The H.264 is the format of choice for all the trailers for movies that you see on YouTube and stuff like that. So for some reason, it's taking its own sweet time. If I double click it again, it'll force it to open. But Come on. Not sure why this is a computer error, not the file. While that's doing that, I'm going to render out a different version so you can see the difference in file size. Just so that you can see how painful this really can be. We literally found a version of this, of people's files. On that drive, that was a 20 gigabyte movie that they turned in. 20 gigabytes. Okay, so that's the animation codec. So here's the difference. The car turntable, the one that is now here, thank you, QuickTime. This is only a 32 megabyte file. That's it. This one, which is the animation codec, which looks exactly the same, is a 260 gigabyte file, 255 gigabyte file. So you can see the file size difference in just something this small. So that's why do not render out in the animation codec. You'll see the person who does in class because you'll see all the file sizes, and everyone one will be in like the 30 to 40 to 50 megabyte range, and then there'll be the one on there that's like 3 gigs, and you're like, why is that one file? It's because it's simply because of the codec situation. And there's no quality difference whatsoever. And that's the file that you're going to turn in. You're going to then copy that over and put it into our Arch drive for turn in for this project. Let's see here. Yes, it is. And automobile project. So you should have a folder in there with your, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for your turntable movie. I'm looking for the still image of your car composited into the scene, however you render. That can be a PNG or whatever, or a JPEG, doesn't matter to me. I prefer a PNG. And I need your collected thing. But if you render it on the render farm, I can just go to the render farm, and let's keep using Brian's example. Here is the file I will then grab to grade. Okay, I'll grab that and I'll use that for grading purposes to see how you set up everything, okay? That's all it is. The archived 3DS file, yes. So that's what I'm looking for. Any questions on this?